He was more than a voice, he was a battle cry. Jelly Roll, the man who turned scars into songs and struggle into platinum, became a beacon of hope for millions. But behind the inked skin and stage lights, a quiet war was raging, one even his most devoted fans never saw coming. Until one moment backstage shattered the illusion, and everything changed. The warning signs were there, faint but real. But did anyone truly see them? For years, Jelly Roll was more than a music sensation, he was a symbol of redemption. From jailhouse bars to Grammy nominations, his life has played out like a cinematic saga. Grit, pain, heart, his story has it all. But even the loudest voices can falter under the heaviest silence. And behind the curtain, Jelly Roll has been battling demons darker than the lyrics he's known for. Sources close to the genre-blending star now reveal a chilling truth. Recent events have rocked him to his core. As fans roared at sold-out concerts and media hailed his meteoric rise, he was quietly unraveling. This wasn't a headline scandal or a tabloid twist. This was personal, profound, and dangerously real. Addiction, anxiety, the relentless echoes of trauma that never quite fade. He's hinted at the shadows in interviews, letting glimpses of his pain slip through. But no one realized just how close to the edge he truly stood, until now. It began subtly, missed commitments, unreturned calls, a look in his eyes that spoke louder than words. Then came the breaking point. A private emergency, undisclosed, but undeniably life-altering. It forced Jelly Roll to face what he thought he had buried. And it shook his inner circle to their core. Still, he did what he's always done. He put on the show, smiled for the cameras, sang for the fans. But behind the scenes, the cracks are showing. And in the next few moments, we're peeling back the layers to reveal the raw, unfiltered truth he never meant for the world to see. The truth about what's really happening behind the curtain of success. And as the story unfolds, one haunting question remains. Can the man who rose from rock bottom survive a second fall? Before the fame, before the lights and the love, he was just Jason Defied. A kid from Antioch, Nashville, where dreams are rare and second chances, rarer. Born December 4, 1984, Jason's early years were marked by hardship. In a home shadowed by poverty and a mother battling mental illness and addiction, survival was a daily victory. And a father who hustled meat out of a truck just to keep the lights on. Jason's world was rough around the edges, chaotic, uncertain, and often cold. But in the middle of all that noise, he discovered something unexpected, a strange, saving rhythm in music, especially the kind that didn't sugarcoat the truth. Rap became his escape hatch. He gravitated to the raw storytellers, Tupac, 3-6 Mafia, artists who didn't hide their pain but wore it like armor. Their lyrics didn't just resonate, they validated his reality. Even as he scribbled rhymes and dreamed of a way out, the streets had already staked their claim. By his teens, Jason wasn't just living the lyrics, he was becoming one. Trouble found him young. Arrested at 14, in and out of UV by 16, he was walking a path that felt all too familiar to those around him. And then came the charge that could have ended it all, a felony that branded him for years. For most, that would have been a final chapter. A name forgotten in a system designed to keep it that way. But Jason had a fire that refused to burn out. Inside the walls of his cell, he found his purpose. Words became his weapon. He filled pages with lyrics, channeling pain into poetry, anger into ambition. It wasn't just self-expression, it was his way out. When he was released, he emerged with a name reborn. Jelly Roll, a childhood nickname from his mother, was now a badge of raw authenticity. He hit the pavement, selling mixtapes out of his trunk, spitting verses at underground shows, linking up with other southern voices chasing the same dream. No hype machine, no big label backing, just hunger, hustle, and honesty. His music didn't dabble in hardship, it lived in it. These weren't concepts, they were confessions. And slowly, people began to listen. But the mainstream wasn't quick to embrace him. For years, Jelly Roll was seen as just another street poet from the South. Tattooed, overweight, unapologetically emotional, he didn't match the pop industry's clean-cut mold. But that's exactly what made him magnetic. His fans weren't just listeners, they were survivors too. They saw themselves in his verses. Meanwhile, behind the mic, life kept evolving. Fatherhood came early, reshaping him more than any stage ever could. His daughter, Bailey Ann, became his anchor in a sea of chaos, the reason he stayed upright when the storm came hard. Later, love found him again in Bunny, a bold podcaster and model who became not just his wife, but his lifeline, steadying him when old demons stirred. Family didn't just change his story, it gave him one worth fighting for. Even at the height of his rise, Jelly Roll made sure his fans knew what truly mattered: his wife, his children, and rewriting the legacy he inherited. But even with love, success, and purpose, some shadows never fully fade. He's never hidden the truth. Jelly Roll has spoken openly about his ongoing war with addiction and mental health, reminding the world that fame may shine a light, but it doesn't chase away the darkness. His leap into country music wasn't calculated. It was unexpected, even for him. But when he fused gritty bars with steel guitars and soul-stirring truths, something remarkable happened. A new audience found him, and they didn't just hear a singer. They saw a survivor, someone who bore the bruises they kept buried. His breakout track, Son of a Sinner, became a confessional anthem, an aching tug-of-war between salvation and self-destruction, grace and guilt. That song didn't just top charts. It opened hearts. It propelled him into the spotlight in a way nothing before had. Suddenly, he wasn't just a cult favorite, he was center stage. Awards followed, television appearances, a tearful debut at the Grand Ole Opry that left even legends in awe. For the boy from Antioch, it was a moment soaked in poetry and pain. But as the applause grew louder, so did the echoes of his past. Jelly Roll has always made it clear, he's not chasing stardom. He's chasing purpose. He wants to be the voice that tells the broken they still matter. That their story isn't over. But carrying that torch for millions isn't easy. Behind the curtain, the pressure has grown heavier. Each milestone brought more weight, more people to please, more quiet nights haunted by the fear that maybe, just maybe, he's still not enough. And lately, that pressure has started to crack the surface. Close friends and longtime collaborators have whispered concerns. The load Jelly Roll's been hauling, his history, his heart, his role as father, husband, and public voice, is wearing him down. A private health scare, hushed talk of burnout, silent strain behind closed doors. The storm may not be visible, but it's brewing. He's still performing, still pouring himself into the music. But those closest to him say the shift is real. He's pulling back, looking inward, wondering if he can truly leave behind the ghosts that built his greatest songs. And that's where we find Jelly Roll now. Not just an artist on a chart, but a man on a cliff, standing between the life he escaped and the legacy he's building. A father, a fighter, a husband, and maybe now more than ever, a soul desperate to find peace in a world that keeps testing his strength. What comes next isn't clear, because the next chapter in his story hasn't been written yet. One thing's certain, the fight isn't finished, and the next chapter may be the most defining yet. For months, quiet murmurs had begun to ripple through Jelly Roll's inner circle. Not gossip column chatter, not social media speculation. These were whispers from those who knew him best: his tour crew, his family, and Bunny Zoe, his wife and closest confidant. They had started to notice the signs, the restless nights, the fading energy, the way he'd drift mid-performance, not from the music, but from himself. Something deep was unraveling. Then came the moment that changed everything, a private medical emergency that hit just hours before a major show. According to those present, Jelly Roll collapsed in his dressing room moments before walking out to a sold-out crowd. 1 minute, calm. The next, chaos. EMTs rushed in. His blood pressure had spiked dangerously. He was pale, trembling, and gasping for breath. To the public, the message was simple: exhaustion. The grueling tour had caught up with him. But behind the curtain, his team knew this wasn't just burnout. This was a warning shot. His body was sounding the alarm his mind had long ignored. He was hitting a wall. Hard. Doctors advised an immediate break, a full stop on touring, and a serious look at his physical and mental well-being. But Jelly Roll, always the warrior, resisted. There were shows to play, fans waiting, promises he'd made. In his mind, backing out wasn't just a setback, it felt like betrayal. Because he's lived that feeling, he knows what it means to be left behind. And he's sworn never to make others feel the same. But the truth behind closed doors was stark. Years of wear, emotional, physical, psychological, were catching up. The man who once wrestled down his addictions now faced a new monster, the crushing weight of being everyone's rock while crumbling inside. And the collapse wasn't an isolated event. There were signs, growing and urgent. A missed podcast taping with Bunny, highly unusual for a duo so publicly united. A sudden silence on social media. Interviews postponed without reason or reschedule. The man who once poured his soul into every post went dark. Fans noticed. And then came the moment that cut deeper than any headline. A confession, not packaged for PR, but spoken softly during a dimly lit late-night livestream. With only a lamp casting shadows across his face, Jelly Roll didn't speak as a celebrity. He spoke as a broken man. "I ain't been okay," he said, voice raw, cracking. "I thought I could carry it all, but I can't. I've been scared, I've been tired, and I've been ignoring my own warning signs for way too long." He opened up about the fear of performing while fighting anxiety, about the panic attacks he'd hidden behind stage smiles, about slipping, not into substances, but into emotional eating, self-isolation, and the brutal habit of pushing past his limits until his body forced him to stop. What made the moment unforgettable wasn't just the confession. It was the vulnerability, the humility, the courage to say, "I'm not okay, and that's okay to admit." Jelly Roll, the man who once stared down prison walls and battled addiction, was now admitting something perhaps even harder: he was human, and he needed help. In the days that followed, fans flooded him with messages of love, support, and understanding from every corner of the internet. His wife, Bunny, posted a heartfelt message reminding everyone that true strength isn't about always being okay. It's about knowing when to pause, to heal, and to ask for grace. But as the dust settled, a harsher truth emerged, one that shook even his most loyal supporters. Doctors had found that Jelly Roll was at serious risk of long-term health problems if he didn't change course. High blood pressure, chronic stress, and early signs of cardiac strain all showed up in recent tests. These were warnings that, if ignored, could cut his life, and his legacy, short. He faced a choice: take a break and address these issues head-on, or risk never finishing the story he'd started. It was a wake-up call that demanded action. Quietly, Jelly Roll began to reshape everything. He withdrew from several upcoming shows. He redirected his energy toward recovery, physical, emotional, and spiritual. He returned to therapy, worked with a trainer, and reconnected with spiritual practices long neglected amid the chaos of success. Most importantly, he started opening up to his family, Bunny, his daughter, sharing fears he had buried for years. Because the truth is, the pain never truly leaves. It just finds new places to hide. Longtime fans know Jelly Roll has weathered many storms before. But this one feels different. This isn't about bouncing back from failure. It's about choosing to live fully, even when you feel like you're breaking. And that's what makes this chapter so compelling. Jelly Roll is no longer just the underdog who clawed his way out. He's a man standing at the summit, looking back at the darkness, choosing to move forward with clarity. This moment, painful as it is, could become the most pivotal of his life. Not because of the crisis itself, but because of what he decides to do next. Will he come back stronger, more focused, more intentional? Will he finally take control of his health and put himself first? Or will the weight of expectations drag him back into the relentless grind that nearly broke him? No one knows yet, but one thing is certain: Jelly Roll's story isn't finished. It's still unfolding, line by line, heartbreak by heartbreak, triumph by triumph. If this chapter has taught us anything, it's that even heroes need healing. So as fans, all we can do now is wait, and hope that the next time he takes the stage, it won't just be to perform, but because he truly wants to be there, healthy, whole, and ready to begin again. Beyond the heartache, the raw lyrics, and the sold-out arenas, Jelly Roll's greatest achievement may not be found on any billboard. It's found in the quiet ways he's changed lives off stage. Behind the tattoos and troubled past is a man building a legacy not just of success, but of service. Over the years, Jelly Roll has used his platform not for vanity, but for visibility. For the overlooked, the incarcerated, the addicted, and the brokenhearted. He hasn't just sung about redemption, he's lived it. And he's reached back to pull others out of the fire too. One of Jelly Roll's most powerful acts of giving back came when he returned to the very juvenile detention center in Nashville where he was once held as a teenager. But this time, he didn't walk in as an inmate, he walked in as a mentor. He donated $250,000 to build a music studio inside the facility, providing young inmates with an outlet, a voice, and a reason to believe they too could rewrite their stories. "I wanted to give these kids hope," he said in a 2023 interview with CBS Mornings. "Music saved my life. Maybe it can save theirs too." But his efforts didn't stop there. Jelly Roll has also become a fierce advocate for mental health awareness, addiction recovery, and criminal justice reform. He's spoken at recovery centers, supported non-profit re-entry programs, and used his social media platform to raise funds for families affected by addiction. In a time when many celebrities shy away from hard truths, Jelly Roll steps right into them. Even his relationship with his wife, Bunny has become a beacon of love and healing. Together, they turned their podcast, Dumb Blonde, into a platform where trauma, recovery, and redemption are openly discussed, offering listeners not just entertainment, but a safe space to heal. Jelly Roll's fans aren't just supporters, they are survivors. His concerts feel less like performances and more like group therapy sessions, where strangers unite, singing along to their own stories of pain and hope. And that, perhaps, is the true heart of his impact. He's built a community. He's given a voice to those who once felt invisible. He's shown that your past doesn't have to define your future. He's reminded us all that redemption is messy, but always possible. Now, as Jelly Roll faces one of the toughest chapters of his life, his legacy feels more urgent than ever. Not because of fear, but because of faith. Faith that the man who rose from rock bottom will rise again. This time, not for fame or applause, but for himself. Jelly Roll's story isn't a fairy tale. It's not neat, polished, or predictable. It's a battle-scarred ballad, full of bad choices, broken hearts, brave comebacks, and unfinished verses. And that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Because when Jelly Roll steps on stage, he carries every part of his journey with him. And when he steps away from the spotlight, it reminds us that even our heroes bleed. Even our strongest voices need time to rest. And the man who has given us so much hope might need us now more than ever. So if you've ever found comfort in his music, if his lyrics helped you through a sleepless night, if his journey reminded you that healing is possible, this is your moment to show up for him. Send your love and support as he recovers. And if you're fighting your own battle, let Jelly Roll's story be your reminder. You are not alone. You matter, and it's never too late to begin again.